Good
Hi.
evening. It is the second of our series of interviews for the exhibition. Alan Noyes painted Hatstack and won the SEAW Members Award. Alan, congratulations on your award. Viewers, please post any questions and comments in Facebook Live and they will be answered at the end. Alan is a local lad. He was taught by Colin Moss at the Ipswich Art School before going away to study architecture. From school, through architectural training and practice, and in later life, Alan always had a love of watercolour. He has worked in oil, pastel, ink and graphite, but watercolour is his love. Let's have a look at the painting Hatstack. Alan, why do you love watercolours?
Well, I'm always under the impression that people who don't know tend to consider watercolor to be a children's medium. But as you've said, I've painted and drawn in most media, and I find watercolor is actually the most difficult and unforgiving. It requires an awful lot of practice, but it it bears spending time on it. I mean, the results can be really amazing, and it's a sort of tough mistress that goes its own way when you're not looking. So uh, no painting is the same. If you try and if I was to try and repaint Hatstack, for example, it would never come out the same as the original one. And I've painted paintings more than once, and I always struggle to get them to look like the one I painted the first time. But watercolor does its own thing. It's difficult to control, but it's worth trying.
Yes, so every work is an individual piece, then a unique piece, isn't it? That won't
Oh, very,
look like another.
yeah.
Which watercolorists influenced you, Alan?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say Turner influenced me. I think most watercolorists are influenced by Turner. He was one of those guys who went away from convention and started taking watercolor off in a totally new direction. The conformists almost, well, I was going to say painted by numbers, which Turner certainly didn't. Um, and he was just a very, very, very exciting watercolor painter. Modern painters, Zabutvik, I admire, and Andrew Wyatt, an American artist who, I think Andrew Wyatt probably had a strong influence on this Hatstack painting. He paints, or he painted. He's no longer with us, sadly. He died, I think, earlier in 2020. But he painted incredibly dark darks and bright lights. That's one of the things I enjoy painting is light, and it's difficult to do.
Yes,
Unlike oil or gouache, for example, or acrylic, you can paint over the top with those media, and you can paint from dark to light. But with watercolor, as you know, you have to paint the other way round, and the darks go on last, and you reserve the whites, so the paper shines through, and it's quite hard to do.
yes. And who in particular led you to paint your award-winning painting Hatstack?
Nobody in particular, really. That piece of furniture in the picture is in our hallway at the bottom of the stairs, and I've got quite a collection of old hats that I usually buy them when I'm on holiday, um, and chuck them in a heap in the corner. So I came down one morning. This is the third painting of hats I've done. Um, it got into the RI this year. The second one I painted got into the RI in 2016. So there is a theme of hats, really. I find them quite an interesting subject. But coming down the stairs in the morning with the sunlight shining on where these hats were, I just said, I've got to paint that. And that was the inspiration. And I expect I'll probably get more paintings out of it as well. Can't get away from the hats.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. The painting hat stack is now sold. But a number of Alan's paintings, Remember Last Summer, which has similar wonderful light qualities, is still available to buy. We encourage you to visit the exhibition and vote for your favourite painting to stand a chance to win a £75 voucher to be spent on art on display. Are there any questions on Facebook?
There's one from Laurie.
Oh, Laurie, what's your question, please?
Well, she's asking she says that I love the light that Alan's managed to capture. What's his top tip for getting good light? And I suppose the top tip is you really, really have to plan your painting and know where you want the lights to be reserved. I can't point on screen at this picture, but if you look at the lights on the two hats, for example, and the patches of light on the wall at the back, Anthony, you probably remember the way that I paint, which is using an awful lot of water, saturating the paper, and then dropping pigment in and moving it about. The way I reserve white or light is by keeping those sections of the painting which I wish to be light, keeping them dry. So when I put the colours in, the colours don't go on those dry bits of paper. And eventually, I lost count of the number of washes I painted on this picture, but I paint wash over wash over wash. And each time I do it, I save a little bit more, or I reduce a little bit of the area of light to get the darks concentrated against the light.
Do you find that you leave areas of the paper white then and don't paint anything on them at all?
Indeed, I do, yes. I don't think there's any white areas on this particular painting, but lots of times I do reserve white totally, yes.
Well, everyone, the next interview is on Saturday, and there'll be more interviews coming during the exhibition. We have put a link to the exhibition in the comments section, and thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Good night.